Into that sealed dump is not gonna cure any problems. It's just gonna create more problems, is what I'm trying to tell you. That's not required by the DEQ. We don't have a letter to that effect yet. The contractor is telling you, yeah, we wanna drill holes into the landfill. That's a contractor. That's what they make money doing, is drilling holes and testing.
Jeremy, can you read back the motion?
I can try here, yes. Postponement until next meeting to receive maps of drill holes and boundaries of landfill, along with justification to drilling holes in capped landfill and assurance that will not cause future problems, and confirmation that the information regarding if the aquifer or river is being contaminated.
Okay. I think that covers, to me, that seems like it covers all the concerns that have been raised. And the,
Aquifer and or river. Because it seems the same thing to me. We should be drilling by the river, to see if it's flowing through the river. That would seem like an easy test, rather than boring through a sealed dump.
Absolutely. And then once you bore through it, you can try to reseal it, but you're never gonna get a seal on it.
so I have a question for staff. Do we believe that that would be possible by our next meeting, to get all that information from Eagle and the consultant?
Yes, we believe so.
Is there any further discussion on this, on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. So that motion passes unanimously
Postpone.
to postpone. So now we are at the original motion as amended. Discussion?
I'm not sure.
Or no? Right, so we're
Yeah, you're good.
we're good, yeah.
Pass the postponement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Next on our agenda is item number 8, which is to consider a resolution in support of the 2020 census. Commissioner Kulik.
I move the resolution and request that the city manager read it for our folks in television land.
Second.
I would add a discussion that the resolution is pretty lengthy. You okay with reading? Okay. I guess all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. And it's unanimous.
So the resolution is entitled, Resolution Recognizing the Importance of the 2020 Census and Encouraging Residents of the City of Mount Pleasant to Promote and Complete the Census to Ensure a Fair and Complete Count. Whereas the U.S. Census Bureau is required by Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution to conduct an accurate count of the population every 10 years. And whereas the next enumeration will be April 1st, 2020, and will be the first to rely heavily on online responses. And whereas the primary and perpetual challenge facing the U.S. Census Bureau is the undercount of certain hard-to-count population groups. And whereas the City of Mount Pleasant has a large percentage of individuals that are considered traditionally hard to count. And whereas these diverse communities and demographic populations are at risk of being missed in the 2020 census. And whereas the City of Mount Pleasant receives federal funding that relies in part on census data. And whereas a complete and accurate count of the City of Mount Pleasant population is essential. And whereas the data collected by the decennial census determines the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives and is used to distribute billions of dollars in federal funds to state and local governments. And whereas the data is also used in the redistricting of state legislatures, county boards of supervisors, and city councils. And whereas the decennial census is a massive undertaking that requires cross-sector collaboration and partnership in order to achieve a complete and accurate count. And whereas the City of Mount Pleasant's leaders have made it a priority that every citizen is counted once, only once, and in the right place. And whereas this includes coordination between city, county, tribal, state governments, community-based organizations, education, and many more. And whereas the U.S. Census Bureau is facing several challenges with Census 2020, including constrained fiscal environment, rapidly changing use of technology, declining response rates, increasingly diverse and mobile population, thus support from partners and stakeholders is critical. And whereas the City of Mount Pleasant, in partnership with other local governments, the state, businesses, schools, and community organizations, is committed to robust outreach and communication strategies, focusing on reaching the hardest to count individuals. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Mount Pleasant recognizes the importance of the 2020 U.S. Census and supports helping to ensure a complete, fair, and accurate count of all residents of the City of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item number 11, which is consider amendment to a prior approval for the purchase of self-unloading trailers and appropriate budget amendment for the same. Manager Ridley, would you like to introduce us?
Yes, earlier this year you approved the purchase of 2 trailers to be owned by the city, but to be used by our contracted recycling curbside pickup hauler. And those 2 trailers were being purchased to increase efficiency as well as increase safety when the materials are dropped off at the material recovery facility. At the time, we recommended 1 trailer that had containers in it and 1 that was more of a flatbed trailer. Since that time, we've learned that MMI, our current contractor, when they use a flatbed trailer, they actually strap containers to the side of the trailer to do some of the sorting. And so it's really, in order to meet our goals of efficiency and safety, it's really important to have 2 trailers that both have containers in them. So Protainer, who was the bidder on the 1 trailer with containers, has agreed to hold their price of $14,400 for a second trailer. So we're recommending the purchase of 2 of the trailers with containers for a total cost of $28,800 and an additional budget amendment of $7,850 to cover that additional cost of the trailer with the containers.
Commissioner Kulik,
Move the approval.
second by Commissioner Perschbacher. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 12 is to confirm road salt purchase from the State of Michigan My Deal Extended Purchasing Program and a budget amendment for the same. Manager Ridley?
Again, earlier this year, you provided authorization for us to commit to a delivery of up to 500 tons of road salt for delivery this year, and then an additional up to 800 tons as part of the seasonal delivery after the first of the year. And both purchases were through the State of Michigan contract. And at the time of the approval, we did not have pricing because they were still in the bidding process. As the memo indicates, when we entered our commitments, we made an error and instead committed to buying 800 tons for early delivery and 500 tons as the seasonal backup. So the salt has been delivered and is in the salt barn, and it was when we went to process the payment that we realized we received 800 tons instead of the 500 tons that we originally had anticipated. From a good news standpoint, the early delivery price is lower than the seasonal delivery price. So actually over the 2 years, this error in our entry will actually end up saving a little bit of funds for the city. But before we can make the payment, we need you to confirm after the fact the approval of the 800 tons that were delivered and approve the appropriate budget amendment for this year, please.
Commissioner Kulik?
Move to confirm the purchase of 800 tons of road salt for early delivery and the appropriate budget amendments.
Seconded by Commissioner Tolas. Any discussion? Commissioner Tolas?
I see there's a transpose numbers that were mixed up. Instead of ordering 500, we ordered 800 tons. I don't think really that's a problem. Salt's not going to spoil. Also, the city buys that under a municipal discount, which is about $38 a ton, cheaper than private individual companies like me buy it. So,
Yeah. I would add that because we bought it earlier, we're actually going to be saving more money in the long run. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same. That is unanimous. Next on our agenda is item number 13, which is to consider a closed session pursuant to subsection AE of the Open Meetings Act to consult with counsel regarding pending litigation, Fisher Transportation Company et al. V. Union Township et al. I believe we just go straight to a roll call vote. Need a motion? Commissioner Ling
So moved.
and Commissioner Kulik.
Support. Second.
I'll take the roll call.
Commissioner Kulik,
Yay.
Commissioner Lalo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ling,
Yes.
Commissioner Perschbacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gillis,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
motion passes.
Next on our agenda is item number 15, which was added to the agenda this evening to discuss sanitary sewer lines. Commissioner Kulik.
Jeremy, would you read that section of the sewer code that's creating the problem, please? I believe it's 51.04,
Sure.
although I thought it was 50.40, but there's a few numbers among friends.
51.040, separate building sewer for each building. A separate and independent building sewer lead shall be provided for every building, except where one building stands at the rear of another on an interior lot, and no private sewer is available or can be constructed to the rear through an adjoining alley, courtyard, or driveway. The building sewer from the front building may be extended to the rear building, and the whole considered as one building sewer. Other exceptions will be allowed only by special permission granted by the manager.
The problem that exists is the property that's behind me, that fronts on Kinney Street. The sewer line failed from the main house, and the sewer line from the main house connects in the alley. And there's a garage apartment back there, and the garage apartment sewer line connected to the sewer line for the house. That ordinance now requires that there be a separate sewer line from the main house to the alley and from the garage apartment to the alley, rather than being able to tee them together in the backyard. Now, that's usually not much of a problem, except last year the neighborhood requested a special assessment to redo that alley because it was in such bad shape that either it was going to have to be special assessed and paved, or it was going to be pulverized and removed. We haven't even paid for that alley yet. I was talking to the contractor this evening, and he said, yes, we're going to have to tear open that alley, cut into the brand new asphalt, and put a sewer line in there where if you put a T in there, or a Y actually it would be rather than a T, it would flow just as it has for the past 60, 80 years, however long that garage apartment has been there. The other problem is that this alley was constructed somewhat unusual in that usually when they put an alley in, they crown it so that when the water goes on the alley, it flows off the sides. This alley was built sort of V-shaped, so the water runs to the center of the alley and then runs to each end of the alley. I contend that cutting into that alley, that drainage will never properly work again. What I'm hoping is that we can slow the project down a little bit with the contractor and have the city manager investigate whether or not this would be a good time to provide an exception for the rule of the ordinance. The ordinance clearly gives her the ability to make that exception. And I'll start babbling and see if people have any questions.
Are you making a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that the city manager investigate the situation and, if possible, grant a waiver. some of that's gonna have to be done very quickly. Somebody's gonna have to get out there to the contractor tomorrow morning and say, whoa, cool your jets just a little bit.
So I believe we need a second for that motion. Commissioner Lalone? Discussion. Commissioner Cooley?
If this was a year ago and the alley was in the condition it was before they repaved it, I would have no problems with providing the 2 leads there. If this was a gravel alley, I would have no problems with the 2 leads. The fact that this asphalt is, I want to say, barely cooled, provides a problem that the